Thank you, Ashton. Thank you for asking me to speak. You helped me keep sober this way, so I appreciate that. My name is Mary. I am a grateful alcoholic currently residing in Maine. I moved here in October from upstate New York, where I lived my entire life. I have a sober date. My current sober date is March 30th, 2015. I originally found the rooms of AA in 2004. So my original sober date was April 14th of 2004. That's my part of my story, which I will get to. I have a sponsor and I have sponsees, and I also have a home group. Those are all things that I believe are essential to maintaining my sobriety. I also have service positions, which I also think is essential. So I'm the youngest of four children. I was raised predominantly by just my mom. My father died when I was 6 of colorectal cancer, although he was an alcoholic, according to my mother. So that is part of my story. Both his parents were alcoholic. And I remember stories of my grandmother, her presence in my life was either really good or really bad. She would drink and then get really kind of sort of violent and angry. And I remember that being part of my understanding of what alcohol did. I was not raised in a home where there was a lot of drinking. My mother didn't drink. Although when we had, we'd go to weddings and stuff and there was always booze, and they always drank to that point where it was just completely out of control. Life was uncomfortable for me. As the youngest of four, I kind of felt like I was sort of an afterthought. I wore life like an itchy sweater. I wasn't comfortable in who I was, and I certainly didn't think that you guys were comfortable with who I was. I was very shy. We lived in the country, and we had horses. And we had a lot of animals. And so I kind of immersed myself in the horses. And I showed, and I, did pony club and 4-H and all that stuff. So it was kind of, this rural setting where I just did this, wonderful, idyllic sort of childhood of just kind of running around the neighborhood barefoot, riding horses bareback with my best friends. And that all just continued until I graduated high school. After I graduated high school, I went away to college in Ohio, and that's where I first discovered booze, like really discovered booze. And me being the introvert and uncomfortable person that I was, once I discovered alcohol, it was like, oh my God, this is the answer to all my problems in life. All of a sudden I was okay with being around people. I was okay with who Mary was. And I didn't we went to frat parties, and I remember you either drank the punch, which had grain alcohol in it, which, I was either inebriated and ending up in strange men's bedrooms, or I was trying to drink this beer that I didn't like. But, I only drank weekends. Like I drank to the parties, and I surrounded myself with people in my life that drank the way I did. So all through college, that just seemed to be like the normal thing. And I did fine. I did well with my academics. I also did the college I went to, there was an academic term abroad that I did where I went to England, and I went to a riding center for 6 months. And it was really funny because you could ride and do booze at the same time, which was really kind of awesome. We used to ride, and they had like a bar right attached to the riding center, And the funny thing is that the kids over there didn't really drink, but we all did. The Americans did. So graduated college, came home and started working at a horse farm. It was a thoroughbred breeding farm that I had worked at throughout college summers. I prepped yearlings for the sales in Saratoga. So horses were always a part of my life. There was a fox hunt associated with the farm that I worked at. So I used to ride. I was like what they call a whipper in for the fox hunt. And with fox hunting, all you do is drink. You start your morning with the stirrup cup where you're drinking in the morning, and then you have a flask while you're riding. And then at the end of that, after you do the fox hunting thing, when you get back, you have the breakfast and you drink all the booze at the breakfast. So there was always booze. And I was always drinking. Well, like, I didn't realize this until I actually came into AA. I always drank alcoholically. Like, to me, there was no point in drinking if I wasn't catching that buzz and beyond. It was like, I fancied myself to like have this idea that I was drinking for the taste, but who's kidding who here? It never mattered what it tasted like as long as I was catching a buzz. I somehow managed, to not get arrested for DWI. I somehow managed to not kill myself or anybody else in spite of all the things that I was doing. Every time I drank, I drove, I drank. I mean, I remember spraining ankles. I remember getting hurt physically, but it just seemed like the norm because everybody else seemed to do it. And it was the only way that I could actually cope with life when I was interacting with people. So after a while, I got sick and tired of working at the horse farm because I was working really physically hard and I was only getting one day off a week. And I'd gone to college, I'm paying student loans, and I'm like, this isn't, really working for me. So I started taking tests. I took tests for anything that I could take a test for all of the military academies. I took the state police test. I took the FBI test. Well, when I took the state police test, they called me up. I did pretty well on the exam. They called me up and they said, hey, you want to be a trooper? And I said, absolutely. 20 years and out, I can do this career and I can be done, retired by the time I'm 50. So I went into the academy in March of 1988, 3/28/88 was the date that I went into the academy, and I became a state trooper. And that was another whole sort of, that was like a really screwed up. It really screwed with my mind because deep down inside, I knew I had this disease, but yet I had to somehow function in life, so I was able to sort of compartmentalize. Like, if I was wearing my trooper uniform, I was okay. And I was playing that role and life was, I could do that thing. Eventually I did meet a man that I married. He's one of us too, although he still drinks, and we're happily divorced, and had a daughter. And as long as I was being a mom, I was okay. I could be a mom, I could be a wife, I could be a trooper. As long as I was playing some role, I could function in life. But as soon as I became Mary and I was sitting at home by myself, I wanted to freaking die. I would bury myself in the booze. I just didn't want to exist. I didn't want to die. I didn't want to commit suicide, but I didn't want to live, if that makes sense. I just didn't want to exist. Like my dreams, I could just imagine myself in the bottom of my closet covered up with all my clothes and just not exist. That was to me was what I wanted my life to be. I just didn't want to have to function anymore. So life goes on. I'm doing my job. I'm still drinking and driving occasionally, but more often than not, I'm drinking at home and not driving. I found the rooms of AA in 2004. The way I found them, my niece comes to me. She's all upset because my oldest sister is drinking a handle of vodka every weekend. And every time she sees her, she's, blotto drunk. And she was all worried about her. And I'm like, well, I'm nobody. Don't look at me, because I'm not somebody that can go tell anybody else not to drink. And I thought, you know what? You need to go with her. You need to go join AA. So I started going to meetings, but I wasn't going to meetings for Mary. I was going to meetings to get Kathy sober. I wasn't interacting. I would go like to meetings every now and then. Whenever she told me she was going to one, I'd go and hang out with her at a meeting, and then I'd pick up a chip every now and then. And I think I did that for like 4 years, where I was a dry drunk. But I heard enough to think that I wanted to keep going, but at some point along the way, my daughter was a teenager, and I remember her saying something to me about how she really was going to be upset because I wasn't going to be able to drink with her when she turned, at that point, 21. And so we were out to dinner one day, and I just said, I'm going to order a beer. And I did. And I just picked up again. And then so I started drinking. Now, during that period of time, my mother died. My mother had been living with me. She was actually really beneficial because she had retired and she moved in with me so that she could help take care of Emily, because my daughter's father wasn't really part of the picture. And I worked crazy shifts, and she really was instrumental in helping me take care of her. But that death of my mother, at that point, my mother didn't know that I had picked up again, or I thought she didn't know. I'm pretty sure she knew. I would put the 12-pack of beer in the bottom of the refrigerator sideways so that she wouldn't see it. The crap we do, the insane things we do. Yeah, mom knew I was drinking, no doubt. Or I'd have the wine bottles in the closet and I'd drink when I was, downstairs it was stupid. But my mother ended up passing away. And that's truly probably one of the only regrets I still have. I wish although I do believe that my mother knows I'm sober now. So, there's always that, because I believe they never really leave us. So fast forward to, I remember the second sobriety date that I had was February 1st of 2011. I went back into the rooms and I was a hot freaking mess, crying, breaking down. Just a mess, couldn't stop drinking. And, I'm going to meetings. They're telling me don't drink and go to meetings. I find this home group, but I'm going to meetings that fit in my schedule, right? I'm not inconveniencing myself at all. I'm still working full time, trying to pad my retirement. So I'm working as much overtime as I can. And, I was planning on retiring in 2012. And I remember I had gone to this one meeting and this woman says to me, she says, Mary, she says, I told her I was a trooper. And she goes, oh, don't tell anybody that. And then I said, and I'm planning on retiring. And she goes, oh my God, you're going to pick up again. You better be really careful. And she's saying all these things. And I'm just getting all these freaking resentments. And I'm like, screw you. So I didn't go to meetings, and I got all resentful towards her. I didn't do everything everybody told me to do. I didn't get a sponsor. I didn't keep going to meetings. I didn't go to meetings that were good for me or that had what I wanted. I just went to the ones that fit into my schedule. Needless to say, I picked up again. I kept picking up and then not drinking, and then picking up and then not drinking. And I know I had at least 3 one-year coins by the time I finally landed back again in March of 2015. And all I can tell you about my sobriety date was the fact that I have no idea what the actual date is right now, because at the point that I finally got back in here, it was the end of March 2015. I remember at the time I was waking up every single morning begging God to please get me through the day without a drink. Now, I had been seeing a therapist, and at some point along the way, when I was talking to my therapist, who actually I found out later was one of us because I saw her in one of my meetings, she was telling me about a brain scan that she had, these 2 brain scans that she had seen. And one was an actively drinking alcoholic, and the other was someone who had just had a stroke. And she said they were identical. And that struck me because all I kept thinking was every time I pick up, I'm starting over again. I'm renewing that need that my brain has for more booze every freaking time I pick up. And so at some point along the way, I got this idea that I had to find a way. Even if it was white knuckling it, I had to somehow string some time together, because it was the only way that I was ever going to get rid of this craving. So sometime at the end of March, I knew it wasn't March 28th, because at some point along the way, I remember thinking March 28th would be a great day for me to pick as my sobriety date, because that's also my state police anniversary. And wouldn't it be wonderful if I had the same day? Because don't we alcoholics think that way? I'm going to outsmart everything. But I decided at some point along the way on that day that I would rather celebrate it with alcohol than go without booze. So I celebrated with alcohol that day. So it wasn't, and I knew it was not April 1st of that year, because I knew it was sometime at the end of March, because so I picked March 30th, 2015. So if you do the math, you know, I'm over 7 years sober right now without alcohol. I did find a sponsor. It was white knuckling it. It was white knuckling for till that fall before I actually met a woman and decided that I was going to ask her to be my sponsor. And the funny thing is that I got her phone number, and it was this niece who had come to me about my sister who had been drinking, who actually coerced me into reaching out to this woman, because I had called. She was sober. My niece was sober before I got sober. This is hysterical. So she says to me, she was at the hospital with my sister, was having surgery. Aunt Mary, you have to promise me that you're going to reach out to this woman before the end of the day. Before the surgery is over, you got to tell me you've texted this woman and asked her to be your sponsor, asked her to take you through the steps. And I did it. And so he said, yes. And here I am shocked, because at that point, I had asked so many people to be my sponsor, and they all kept giving me different answers about no, you know, and my whole idea, you know, they would say, either I'll be your friend, or I'll be your phone buddy, or I'll do this, or I'll do that. Everybody wanted to do everything but be my sponsor. Skin, you know, and I'm thinking, if only I could walk into a room of AA, into a meeting, and they have this door in the back of the room that says sponsors inside, and you go in there and there's a bunch of people around a table and you can pick one and walk out, you know. It's not how it works. I mean, I've seen AA Zoom meetings now where they actually have people available to either sponsor or temporary sponsor. You know, they'll give you a phone number right there, and that is, to me, is like unbelievable. But that's not my experience. And what I realized in hindsight, you know, today, I can recognize that I wasn't going to any lengths. I wasn't doing everything that people were telling me to do. I was doing all the things that fit into my life at that point. I was so smart. I was so smart that it took me 11 years to figure out that I had to start doing things the way you guys were telling me to do them. You know, this upbringing that I had, where my mother always told us, you know, Mary, you just got to work really hard and pray, and, you know, if it's meant to be, it'll be, you know. And that was what I thought. You know, I just needed to just put my nose to the grindstone and do what had to be done. I didn't need what you guys had to offer. You know, and there's so many instances in the big book where it talks about that, where it talks about, just today I was in a big book meeting, and they were talking about Jim, the dude who on page 42, and he talks about all this stuff. He says, I saw that willpower and self-knowledge would not help in those strange mental blank spots, because he talks about the fact that no matter how powerful, everything that he had up until that point had been given to him. He's walking by a bar, he's had a really good day, and all of a sudden he thinks, well, I can just have one. Because isn't that what we do? Knowing exactly where alcohol is going to take us, we still think, and how many times it's taken us to that very bottom, to the wreckage. You know, I have a good friend in these rooms who talks about the fact that, you know, he was so resistant to what people were offering him, and all he kept thinking, you know, you have this fear that, you know, what if things don't change, or God forbid, what if things change too much, you know? Well, there's nothing that I had at that point that I really wanted to hang on to, but I was so terrified of the unknown. You know, you guys are laughing, and I'm afraid of what you have. So what ended up happening was I worked the steps with this woman, and the transformation was insane and incredible and immediate. And I did have an awakening. I did not have the spiritual awakening that I have had since then. So fast forward to so I have this sponsor. She's phenomenal. She's in my life. I'm meeting with her every week. I'm talking to her. I'm texting her. Every time I'm going into this crisis mode, she says to me, Mary, your God's not big enough. Your God's not big enough. Put it out to prayer, she'd say to me. And I would sit there like, I'm praying, I'm praying. I would read the plaque that I had sitting inside of my door of my house. And I would say, good morning, Mary, this is God. Today I'm going to handle all your problems for you. And I would walk out the door and I would completely take over everything. I would completely ignore everything that I thought God could do for me. It even got to a point where my sponsor actually gave me a little, she gave me this little task that I had to do, where I had to write down all the things that God could do for me and would do for me. And then another page, I had to write down all the things that God could do for me, but wouldn't. And then the third page was I had to write down all the things that God couldn't do for me. And I went home that week and I filled out these sheets like you can't imagine. And I remember sitting down with her, and I remember her saying to me, we went through the first sheet, and we went through the second sheet, and we started going on the third sheet. She looked at me and she said, hey, Mary, you really think there are things that God can't do for you? And it was like, I could have had a V8. Are you freaking kidding? Like, I really thought, I said, yeah, but what about when I do this or when I do that? And she's looking at me like, have you heard anything I've said to you? Oh my word. So, we're doing well. I'm not, I still don't have the spiritual program that I need. And I'm meeting with my sponsor, but I am only getting together with her and doing the things that I think she needs for me to do in order to have her in my life, because I had connected my sobriety with her being in my life. So COVID happens. And I remember I called her one day and I'm telling her something that we're working on. And she finally said to me, we can't do this anymore. I can't sponsor you anymore. And like, I got really angry. I was really angry. I was so upset with her. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe she's kicking me to the curb. Well, in fact, the reality was that I had made her my higher power. I had connected all of my sobriety on her presence in my life. And so I came to understand that I had to do things differently. I started going to I had started going to 11-step meetings. I started going to two-way prayer meetings. I started going to emotional sobriety meetings. I realized that the God of my understanding wasn't really in my life at all. I had no God of my understanding. I was raised Catholic. I thought I had that whole God thing all taken care of. It was all neatly packaged over here. And God was somebody I only connected with when I really needed something bad, right? When something really bad was happening in my life, I had to pray and things either would or wouldn't work out, and that would be that. God was either answering or not answering my prayers. What I came to believe once I started really understanding that God was within me all the time, and that God is always answering my prayers, whether or not I'm getting my way. Because the thing of it is, my way isn't always the way it's supposed to be. And sometimes God will nudge me and say, hey, Mary, you're going in the wrong way here. And he'll tap me on the shoulder. And I'll go like this. Go on, God. I don't have time for this. I got to go this way. I've got to get this worked out here. I'm working here. I'm busy. And God will be like, yo, Mary. And sometimes Mary needs to be bumped on the head. Sometimes I need full stop, Mary. This is not for you. I since have gotten another beautiful, amazing sponsor. I have a tribe right now. I have a group of women that I can reach out to anytime, day or night, and know that they'll be there for me on the other side of the phone. So there are 5 things that you need to do to stay sober, to have a good, sober program. Number 1, you got to have a sobriety date. Number 2, you have to have a home group. Number 3, you have to have a sponsor. Number 4, you have to have your tribe. And number 5, you have to have a service commitment. Those are the 5 things that I've come to believe and understand are going to keep me sober. Now, with my sponsor and with all those things, clearly the sponsor is going to work program with me, take me through the steps, because that's the purpose of a sponsor, to take you through the steps, to keep you honest. Your tribe, those are the people you call, you know, when you're either angry with your sponsor, or you just need some advice, or you're going on a vacation and you want to talk about, you know, whether or not you're going to find a meeting there. You know, they can have interchange, they can do dual. But the sponsor is the one that keeps me honest. The sponsor is the one that I need to connect with and do my 11th step with. And the sponsor is the one that I need to work my program with every day. I go to meetings every day. I never went to 90 meetings in 90 days until Zoom happened. I thank God for the meetings that I go to. Most of them are, I either go to a speaker meetings or I go to solution-based meetings. I go to big book meetings. I go to emotional sobriety meetings. I go to 11th step meetings, two-way prayer meetings. You know, and those are the things, and my higher power. And when I'm going through life, you know, I meditate. I didn't know how to meditate. The way I learned how to meditate was the Psalm. I think it's 46:10. And it says, "Be still and know that I am God." I had heard this in a meeting one time. Be still and know that I am God. And you say that a few times, be still and know that I am God. And then you drop the last word, and you say it a few times, be still and know that I am. Be still and know that I. Be still and know that I. And then you drop another word until you're at the point where you're just saying be. And that's what quiets me down and centers me so that I can connect with the God of my understanding. It's a beautiful thing that this life of sobriety has given me. I have exchanged complication, insanity, emotion. Today, my reaction when I get emotionally charged, I have to stop. I have a daughter. I have a 30-year-old daughter who's dying of this disease. The hardest thing that I've ever had to accept in my life is the fact that there's nothing I can do to make her find this program. And I had to sit here and know she may die of this disease. I pray for her. I pray she finds this program. And I thank God every day for you guys. There's a thing that I wanted to end with. This is how I feel about this program. It's page 276 of the big book. It says, there is no more aloneness with that awful ache so deep in the heart of every alcoholic that nothing before could ever reach it. That ache is gone and never need to return again. Now there is a sense of belonging, of being wanted and needed and loved. In return for a bottle and a hangover, we have been given the keys of the kingdom. And that's all I have.